Hi, and welcome to Hear the Rare Voices of the DIPG community. My name is Rachna Prasad, and welcome to episode 4. On today's episode, we have Lisa Ward, who is Jace Ward's mother. If you remember from episode 1, I did an interview with Jace, so if you want to check that out as well, please do. Ever since Jace's diagnosis, Lisa has been a fierce advocate for all DIPG warriors. The work she does is so inspiring, and I'm very excited to be talking to her today. Here is episode 4 of Hear the Rare.
So, advocacy is really important, clearly, to your family as a whole. But I know, from personal experience, it can be hard to be this advocate while while your son is going through the treatment and such. So, how are you able to be so involved and be such a strong advocate for all of these children, not just Jace?
Oh, thank you for asking that. I think I'm involved for two reasons. And probably the number one reason is because Jace finds such purpose in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way that we connect. I think we both think in a really difficult time in our life, especially his life, that it's adding purpose. It adds some hope for us. And I mean, the silver lining is connecting with some really amazing families that are going through exactly what you're going through. So that's one reason. And the other reason is super simple, like other people did it for us. And Jace's journey would be nowhere the same if it hadn't been for other families who said, these are things you need to know. These are people you need to know. This is worth fighting for. I've dedicated my life to that. And we just think, like, if we can play a small part, in that, that's huge. We kind of keep a list of maybe the families that we've helped to navigate. And, everyone's so important to us.
Yeah.
They become part of your family.
Yeah, I love that. You guys are such a kind-hearted family. So when Jace was first diagnosed, where did you turn to for information? As you said, there were a lot of families. So were the families the first people you looked towards, or, did you just Google search or?
Yeah, so I just had never heard of DIPG, and no one in our family had, although we should have, because we knew of Parker Monholland, whose family had made such a public journey with Parker to spread awareness, to help, and they sought treatment in other countries because things were just not available here. They were so brave, and Parker was this adorable little 9-10-year-old who deserves so much more life than she got a chance to have. And I remember seeing Parker's face. We even participated in a couple fundraisers. She lived about 30 miles from us, but I didn't translate that to, this is a childhood cancer that's killing more children than any other disease right now, and the treatment hasn't changed for 60 years. And I should be absolutely outraged about that. I don't need my own child to have DIPG to be outraged that a family has to walk that really dark and lonely path, right?
Yeah.
And yet it was within 12 hours, less than that probably, of the diagnosis, that Parker's mother, Amanda, reached out to me and said, I heard from a friend, do you want to talk? And that was amazing. And, she said two things that I will never forget. And I think I've heard since, and I always try to say that there's not a wrong answer. Like, your child best, and you're going to make the best decision you can. And with DIPG, there's just not a perfect one, right? And that plays in my mind a lot. And then she also said, make sure you know why you're going where you're going. If you're going to seek a biopsy, why would you do that? What do you want to get out of it? If you're starting radiation, does it have to be now, or should you know more about trials? And so those two pieces of information were huge. And then Amanda Haddock came on the scene and helped, Christina Washler, Paul Cozy. So these are all people that have their own kind of interest in the brain cancer world, but are so supportive of others. And man, within the first 2 or 3 weeks, there were so many more. And it helped us get to tumor boards we didn't even know existed in Chicago and San Francisco. A couple people made emails, and we were in New York City the next week seeing Sharon Gardner about ONC201 and Dr. Mark, and doors just opened.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is what convinced me in the power of advocacy, because you don't know what you need in the moment you need it. You only know after you've gone past that part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
And there are so many more things I'm going to still have questions about as Jace's journey progresses, but I don't even want to know them till I have to know them.
Yeah.
So I think with the families, we get that, and we can share with each other what we need to know when we need to know it, and make it just a bit less overwhelming.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely agree. There's a lot of power, I think, with, us sharing each other's stories and things like that, for sure.
Yeah.
So what was, once you, learned all these things about DIPG, what was your reaction to knowing that Jace was so much older than, the age that children usually get DIPG?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, at first, other than the very initial diagnosis, that neurosurgeon said you have DIPG. When we were at MD Anderson, we were on the adult oncology, neuro-oncology side, and they weren't sure that's what it was. They didn't know if it might be a cyst, it might be a low-grade glioma, maybe we should look at some surgery. There was a lot of, not common ground that this is DIPG. And yet if we had been on the children's side, they were doing a number of trials and are really one of the leaders in DIPG, right? So that was the difference of being older. There are hospitals that, in our local area that we have to have special permission if Jace has an emergency to go to, because he is older, right? And then just, funny things like when he had his biopsy at UCSF, I had to say, you can't curse. There are children on this floor. Like you can't say this hurts like hell. You can't say that. So that's a piece of it. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Because I don't know the opposite. Jace, the first day was able to Google and know what the prognosis was, see all the pictures, read 0% survival, read 5% after 2 years. And I didn't get to introduce that to him. Like as a mom, you kind of want to shelter your kids, but you can't shelter a 20 and 21-year-old. You guys are adults with your own minds and your own versions. So, sometimes I think I'm protecting him, but he's protecting me just as much.
Yeah.
And I suppose if you're 8, you're probably the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know which is worse.
Yeah.
To know everything or to not understand.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's definitely, both sides to each of the ages, I think.
Yeah. The one thing about being older is he knows it's not his fault, and he knows it's no one's fault.
Yeah.
And so there's not a blame to it.
Yeah.
There's not an anger directed at anyone.
Yeah.
There's anger in your situation. There's regret in your situation. But there's also the feeling of, I've known people that went to work today and didn't make it home, and that's life.
Yeah.
So we're just not promised tomorrow, and we better make the best of every day.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I remember my brother was kind of along the age where he was kind of starting to understand everything, but he was also a little too young to completely comprehend. So he often would ask like my mom, like, why me? But he also knew it was no one's fault as well, but he still had this, like, why did this happen kind of,
Yeah.
nagging. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
I can honestly say I've never heard Jay say that. And I can remember a couple of times where he shared how unfair it was that it happens to the younger kids who haven't had a chance to play football or graduate.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also so touching that he can think about all of these other people and speak about all of these other people while he is going through it as a sibling, and my brother really fought this. Like, it just means so much to see him like advocate for these children. So that always means a lot to me to see him talk about, the younger kids like that. Um, and I know it's definitely a really hard journey. I can't even imagine, what it's like to be a parent. What keeps you grounded on your hard days? And how do you kind of, center yourself, on the tougher days?
Yeah, I feel I'm fortunate because I am a believer. So my faith
Mm-hmm.
probably grounds me the most, and I rely on it constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And just, just the passion to find hope, just the passion to find hope. One of the reasons that I'm really passionate about the UNC 201 as a treatment, not the cure, not the only treatment, is because we've had the chance to get to know Josh Allen, who found it. And I can remember Josh saying the first time he met Jace, they just had a really good conversation. And I remember him saying in his mother's own journey with cancer, he could remember when they had hope, and he could remember how it felt when that changed and there was no more hope. And you just have to keep hope as long as you possibly can.
Yeah,
So
definitely agree.
that's kind of what we go for is, today is not a bad day. We can't grieve missing days we haven't missed yet. We have to enjoy the good days. Now, is that a 100% every day? No, I mean, we have breakdowns, and we would be lying, and that's not fair to say that, I'm not shedding a tear right now, for instance, but more often than not, we find good.
Yeah, that's definitely how my family looked at it too. I remember when we were in the in the treatment phase, hope is the only thing that got us through our bad days, and then even kept us, going on our good days, just hope for, whatever it was, a good day in the future, or like my brother, smiling, the next day, or whatever it was. So I definitely agree. And hope is definitely a very powerful thing, I think, in this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. And one, I think, thing about advocacy or being involved in this space is, you are involved with so many families that have gone through it, are going through it, or starting to go through it, and maybe understand as much as any of your close friends or family,
Yeah.
just have an idea of what to say, because it's hard. And I don't always know what to say, and I definitely didn't know before, but I can remember a mother having to say to me, as much as you want to hide under the sheets right now and not get out of bed, you don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
In those first few weeks, you need to make some decisions, or you're going to regret not being able to make those. And I think there are a lot of us that don't fault anyone for deciding to go home and make memories, as doctors often say. But I mean, honestly, no judgment, no fault. But also believe there is nothing wrong with researching best trials, best options, asking others what might be working, and really trying to work towards quality of life. And I think for us, we've always felt, let's find treatments that can maintain that quality of life and keep hoping a cure comes.
Mm-hmm.
and praying a cure comes and fighting for a cure to come.
Definitely. In your experience, what is the hardest part about being a parent with a DIPG patient? And then also, what is a piece of advice you would give to parents who have whose child is newly diagnosed with DIPG?
Mm-hmm. So I think the hardest thing is that there is not a clear path to save your child.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a trial that is guaranteed to add a lot of life. There's not something that's working even 50% of the time. And in those early days, man, I spent every night starting with what is the PONS, right? And then Googling every word in a pathology report to understand how Jace's genetic mutations were unique, and what might work and might not. And over the last year, probably on a daily basis, a parent will reach out to us, and I'm thankful for that because I appreciate so much the parents that I reach out to, and that's never a burden at all for us. But if there's one thing that is just heartbreaking, it is that the treatment it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
There's not something that's working, and you can read about amazing ideas happening in labs and in mice and maybe starting to be a phase 1 trial. And, right now, Jace has the opportunity to enter a couple, but to be patient number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And where, in a mouse, it worked 75% of the time and there was no tumor left. And 25% of the time, the mouse's life ended because of brain inflammation. So, it's making those really hard choices that you just never signed up for as a parent. But my gosh, your kid didn't sign up for them either. So you just power through. And I guess I would say to a new parent, you have to give yourself a pass on that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know that your bandwidth is nowhere near where it was the day before your child was diagnosed. That you can't do as much at work. You can't make everything perfect at home. You won't find it fun to be in your community all the time because life is just different. And that's okay. That's okay. I my faith has gotten me through, and so I have relied on that. But I think, grounding yourself to understand that we don't have the power to be in control. We can only do as much as we can, and try to support our child with as much love and understanding of what their individual needs are.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's a really important message because I remember my mom often also coming to me and being like, is it something I did? Like, should I have done something differently? But it truly is like nothing that anyone did, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, so I think that's a really, really important message to remind parents out there. So thank you for
Right.
sharing. Yeah.
I think as a parent, you're always beating yourself up like, I'm going to ruin my child's life somehow anyway. So, balancing the other kids, balancing everything.
Yeah.
But I think this is one we have to give ourselves a pass on. And if advocating gives you purpose, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And if being public about your journey gives you purpose, that's okay. And if being private is what you need, that's okay. It is, whatever. I know a mom who says, people always ask me if they can, bring a princess over, and my daughter hates princesses and I don't know how to tell him that. And I was like, you get a pass. You can just say, she's not a princess, girl, but thank you for the thought.
Yeah, definitely. So just to kind of wrap things up, I know you mentioned ONC201. Do you kind of want to just
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that and what the Extended Access Program is and how you guys are involved and why it's so important for your family specifically to be involved with that?
Yes, yes. Hopefully, I won't be an emotional mess through that. You're talking about something I really am passionate about because Jace is really passionate about it.
Mhm.
I think we've shared that Jace was too old to start a clinical trial with ONC201, and we only knew of reported statistics of about 4 patients when he started, but through Facebook groups, we were able to talk to other patients that were on it and some that were having really good experience. Not everyone and not forever, but for some, for a period of time. And I think the reported statistics are like around 30%, and they really don't know um, what 30% other than the H3K27M mutation seems to do well, but not everyone with it. I think maybe we're about to learn some statistics that are a little bit better than that, but those aren't published quite yet. So what happened with Jace was he was able to enter at a really unique time. He could enter 2 weeks after he ended radiation. And I think we understand that ONC201 takes a while to really work. It kind of chips away at the tumor. And so it might take as much as 100 days to really have an impact where you might see some tumor reduction or you might see some system reduction. In Jace's case, he started in September, and it was really like December, January, February, he start feeling really good, and that's continued.
Yeah.
Just today, I was, and it is really every day. Every day there's someone who wants to get on ONC201. And if they can get into a trial, that's obviously the best and the first. But just today we had someone who's about 18, been fighting DIPG for almost a year, is not in progression, but it seems to be the tumor's changing just a little bit, that the treatment that she was trying is no longer thought to be working. So, today we're trying so hard to allow her to start EAP and have the company maybe even provide an exception to let her on so that we don't wait for progression, find out it's after June 15th and not be able to start the treatment.
Right.
And so, anyone out there who's thinking, I love all the research going on, I love all the trials that are getting ready to start, but what happens for kids today? This is a real option.
Definitely. I think it's like in a small subset of this tumor, like there's an even smaller subset of people who I think get, overlooked because they don't fit into these clinical trials and stuff. So this is a really important program that you guys are really advocating for. So definitely. And then I'll leave any information about this program in the description of the video so that people can directly, after watching this or anything, go check that out.
Without the EAP, very soon, hopefully, the clinical trials across the country will start opening up in the wake of COVID. But there should be one opening up that allows, upon diagnosis, the use of ONC201 with radiation. The problem is so many times that the first hospital that someone goes to starts radiation without ever mentioning this trial. And so they wouldn't qualify for that trial. And then the other trial that it looks like will open up, as I understand, will be at progression. It'll be ONC201 and a combination of drugs, which is excellent with PNOC. But I don't know when that'll start, and it is at progression, as I understand it. So this would fill the hole, and this would also allow patients from other countries to come here, and that's the unfortunate part, but there is access, and go ahead and get started. And it's just a pill you take once a week, so you don't have to be in the hospital, every day or anything like that. We think it's something that we should sustain. It's something that was working now, and everybody's having a hard time fundraising at this moment. So if you feel like that's a chance you want to give another child, definitely reach out to your foundation and you can connect them.
Yeah, definitely. We would love to get them connected with this program and stuff. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for just like taking the time out to do this. I know it's hard often talking about these things, and sometimes people are hesitant to just like come up to you in person and talk about them, because I know that's how it was with me and my family. They don't know where the line is, overstepping or like not asking enough. But I think these conversations are really important to have, because hopefully like what you say can help another person, and I feel like that's all that really matters to us at the end of the day. So
I just love that you're starting the conversation, and I love that we can kind of be real and raw with
I really hope so. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for taking the time out of your day to talk to me. I am in awe of everything that you and Jace do, and I feel so fortunate to have been able to get to know both of you guys. For more information about Lisa and Jace's story, you can find it at heartherare.com. If you have any questions or comments, like always, please email us or reach out through heartherare@gmail.com or the contact us form on our website. Like always, please subscribe to our Facebook and Instagram page, and also the different podcast links, which you can find on our website as well. For today's gratitude, I would just like to say thank you so much to all the amazing parents out there. I've firsthand seen how hard it can be, on my mom and my dad, so I know it's definitely not easy, but you guys are all so amazing and so inspiring. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening.